in Pharmaceuticals in association with Higher Secondary Principals Forum.
Good day everyone. My name is Dilsha Valsan and I teach in Nagar High Secondary School. The subject that we are going to cover today is psychology. So in psychology, for the first formative exam, you will be having the first two chapters. The first one is variation in psychological attributes and the second one is self and personality. And the one that I am going to cover today is variations in psychological attributes. Today, before we begin, I just have a small activity to give you because since we are all at home most of the time, we are restricted, we are not having the usual activities that we do in schools. So I would like to start with a small activity. I just need you to observe me and follow the action. Okay, so this is given by Dr. Dennison. They are called as brain gym activities and I mostly recommend my students to do these activities before their study time so that it improves their focus, concentration and it helps them to improve their memory power. So all you have to do is stand straight and yes, before doing these activities you have to have a glass of water so that it improves your blood circulation. So you have to take your right hand diagonally, okay, thumbs up and you have to draw an 8 in the air. And when you do this, I want you to focus on the tip of your thumb. Your eyes should be focused at the tip of your thumb, okay. So you have to do this 10 times right side and the same thing 10 times on the left side. Yes, so I want all of you to do it. Let's start, come on, do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. And the same you repeat on the left hand side. Thumbs up, eyes focused at the tip of your thumb so that your focus and concentration is improved. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Yes, so that's done with the activity. So yes, as I said, these activities help you boost your confidence, it improves your memory, it improves your concentration power. This was just one of which I showed you. There are many such activities which you can do, many such exercises which you can do to empower your brain and make your brain work in a much better manner. Okay, so moving on to our syllabus, I would like to show you this picture and before we come to our topic, I want to ask you what is it that you see in this image? What is different about each child that you see in this image? Definitely most of you would say based on their physical appearances, maybe their hair color is different, maybe their expressions are different, maybe what they are wearing, the color of their clothing or the way they look, their features, maybe their eye color. There are so many differences that you can observe in this picture. Correct? So similar to something like this is what we are going to do today in today's lesson and the topic for today is variations in psychological attributes. Yes, first subject of your syllabus. As I said, when everyone hears about learning something in psychology, everyone thinks about something really interesting related to disorders or maybe something related to Sigmund Freud. Yes, but most of the students say that this chapter is a little technical and dry. Yes, no doubt it is, but nevertheless it is a very important chapter in your syllabus and knowing information from this chapter forms the basis of what you are going to study further. Yes, so variations basically means differences. What are the differences in the psychological attributes? By attributes you mean some kind of quality, some kind of features, yes. So we are going to learn what are the differences in psychological attributes. That's the reason they have titled it as variations in psychological attributes. What are we going to learn today? We are going to learn about individual differences in human functioning, assessment of psychological attributes, domains of psychological attributes, and assessment methods. And the last topic, not the last of your chapter, but the last for today's class will be intelligence. So let's move on and start. Individual differences, as I said in the first image that you had seen, every person, every child, every human being is unique. If you look around the environment, variation is a very common factor that you observe. Imagine a world where everything looked the same, where the trees, where the leaves, where the buildings, rocks, you and me. What if we all were just one color? What if we all were just, say, green or maybe blue? How boring would that be, right? So what makes it unique and what makes it different is the variations. Each of the things that is around us in our nature, each thing that is around us is completely different and completely unique. Everything has its own features and its own definitions. In the same way, we humans, variability is a fact of nature and individuals are no exception to this, which means you and I are no exception to this. We also have a lot of different characteristics amongst us, within us, and even amongst each other. So as I said, in the image you would have seen the physical differences, maybe the height, weight, color, all that might be different. But when it comes to pertaining to psychology, we are going to learn the different psychological attributes, like for example, whether you are a creative person or you are a not so creative person, whether you are a more dominant kind of person or you are more of a submissive kind of person. So these are the attributes that we are going to focus on, which is pertaining to psychological attributes. So as you know, individual difference is the essence of psychology, and individual difference is what makes us unique from the other. But the question here is how and why are people different? Yes? So individual differences refer to distinctiveness and variations among people's characteristics and behavior patterns, right? So our behavior, our characteristic, everything is different from one another, and that is what makes us unique, and that is what individual difference refers to. There are some psychologists that says that behaviors are influenced because of the personal traits that we have, that is personally the traits that are there within us, that is what influences our behavior. Whereas there are some who say that the differences that occur or the behavior that we are having is mostly because of the kind of situation we are in, that is the situational factors is what affects our behavior, and that is what we call as situationism. So situationism is when some hold the view that our behaviors are influenced more by situational factors. For example, say in your class, or maybe you can apply it to yourself, if there is a person who is mostly aggressive, who has the tendency of being angry very easily, irritable very easily, and generally he is a little more aggressive in general terms. But you might be see situations, or you might see episodes of that person where he or she might completely become very calm and submissive, especially when there is a higher authority. So when you say an example in a classroom, there might be a child who is generally very aggressive, but the moment the principal or the head of the institute or the school teacher or a parent comes in, the person's personality, somehow the behavior changes. Not personality, the behavior of the person changes, right? So this is what they say is because of the situation that is that he or she is in. That's why the situational factor plays an important role. And the situationist perspective, what they say is that human behavior, mostly it is as a result of the influence of external factors. So more than what is within you, it is more of the external factors that affects your behavior. Yes, so let's move on to the next subtopic, that is assessment of psychological attributes. Assessment basically means evaluation. So if you want to evaluate, like for example, if you are answering, if you are studying in any class, how will you know whether you are doing well or not? A teacher always assesses you by what? By giving you a test, or probably when you are answering an examination. That is how you know whether you have learnt enough or not, or where you stand academically in the class. The same applies to finding out psychological attributes. So to assess our psychological attributes, there are various methods that are used. It is difficult to count and specify the number of psychological attributes that can be assessed, because there are plenty. It could be something like reaction time, it could be something like happiness, okay. But do remember that assessment is the first step in understanding a psychological attribute. Now assessment, what does it refer to? It refers to the measurement of psychological attributes of individuals and their evaluation. For example, if you say a boy named Harish, he is dominant, okay. When you say he is dominant, that means you have assessed the degree of dominance in that child, right. So how do you assess this? There are two ways. The assessment may be done informally, or it can be done formally, as you see over here. Informal will be more open to subjective interpretations, where it may differ from case to case, and it may differ from the person who is assessing. So the assessor may also find differences. And when it comes to a formal assessment, it is more objective, standardized and organized. So this is a more objective way of assessing. So what does this help in? As I said, Harish is a dominant person. By knowing this, what can you do? By knowing by assessing the psychological attributes of a child or of an individual, it helps you to predict the future behavior. So if you know the person is this kind of a person, you will know that probably tomorrow if he or she is made the head of the class, how they will be. They will obviously be having more of an authoritarian attitude towards the group. So this is the reason why we need to assess the psychological attributes. So psychological assessment uses systematic testing procedures to evaluate the abilities, behaviors and personal qualities of individuals. Do remember these three things. What does the testing procedure do? It evaluates the abilities, behaviors and personal qualities of an individual. Moving on further to the next topic, that is domains of psychological attributes. In a glance, you can see here there are 5 domains, and they are intelligence, aptitude, interest, personality and values. Okay? Now, psychological attributes, they are not linear or they are not unidimensional. In fact, they are multidimensional, because if you try to see a particular psychological attribute, you cannot focus only on one. You will have to see the whole of the person, the entire multidimensional attitude of the person. Like for example, the domains or the areas that you can see would be cognitive, emotional or social. So all the areas needs to be covered. In your text, these are the 5 domains that they are focusing on. First one is intelligence. So we'll go step by step. Intelligence, it is the global capacity to understand the world, think rationally and use available resources effectively when faced with challenges. Yes. So generally when you see, if you talk about intelligence, any student having low intelligence, you will automatically say that he or she will not do very well in school related examinations or school related tests. So that is, yes, correct, but that will not show the success of the child. Intelligence might be a little low, but if you see the overall point of view, the child may be very good at something else and he or she might be successful in doing something else in life. An example to give, there might be many students who might be dropouts, who may not be able to academically complete their education, but they may have a lot of skills which are really good. So if they focus on that, definitely they will succeed in life. So intelligence per se, even if you are having low academic intelligence, does not guarantee your success in life. And the next we move on to is aptitude. Aptitude refers to an individual's underlying potential for acquiring skills. So many of you probably would have answered an aptitude test when you are maybe in the 9th or 10th standard, or sometimes even in the 11th or 12th standard, people might answer an aptitude test. What is that for? It basically shows what kind of underlying potential or skill you have, and it helps you to polish that skill. So if you are able to identify what is the underlying skill that you have, if you polish it and if you get enough training in that particular field, then there are high chances that you will succeed in that. Like for example, if your aptitude is high, if your mechanical aptitude is high, then with enough of training and knowledge you will do well as an engineer. Same way, if your linguistic aptitude, if your language aptitude is high, then you might be very good at creative writing, or you might turn out to be a very good writer. So basically using language will be a high level skill for you. Moving on next, interest. It is an individual's preference for engaging in one or more specific activities relative to others. So what is interest? Interest is what is your liking, in what does your liking lie. Why do you need to know your interest? Is it enough to know your aptitude, that is your underlying skills? No, you have to know your interest as well. Why? Because the moment you have knowledge about what in which field you have interest, that will help you to perform much better in your job, and it will give you a better satisfaction in your life. Okay? Because if you have a good skill, but if you are not interested in it, somewhere down the line you might be demotivated to continue with it. So it is extremely important to also have your interest level checked. Next, as we go, it is personality. Personality, it refers to relatively enduring characteristics of a person that makes him or her distinct from the other. So basically it is the individual's unique characteristic that makes you, you. For example, you might be a dominant person, or you might be a very submissive person, you might be a moody person, or probably quite emotional, emotionally stable, and you might be either very outgoing or someone who likes to be within and not move out or interact much. So your personality is what comprises of all this. As you can see the smileys over there, so we all have different unique personalities, and by assessing the personality you can predict how the person will behave in the future in certain different situations. So that is how it is helpful. And the last one, that is the fifth one, is values. Values, they are enduring beliefs about an ideal mode of behavior. So when it comes to values, basically it is that we all have a standard set of guidelines of how we are in life, of how we act out in life, and that is the same set of guidelines that we follow even to judge other people. Okay? So these are the values that are underlying within us, and when we assess values, what happens is we try to determine the dominant values. We might have a number of values that are underlying in us, but which value is more dominant, that is what you come to know when you assess a person's personality. So, for example, whether you are more of a political person, religious, social, economic, all this depends on the kind of values you hold, or which value is more dominant in you. Yes, so that is done, and the next subtopic that we will cover is assessment methods. Now that you know what are the domains of psychological attributes, we will move on to see how you will assess this, how you are going to assess the various psychological attributes. What are the methods that are used? You have learned this in detail in the 11th standard, and now we will be just brushing through the important parts in this. Okay, so as you can see in brief, it includes psychological test, interview, case study, observation and self-report. Let's go one by one. What is a psychological test? It is an objective and standardized measure of an individual's mental and or behavioral characteristics. Okay? So to know the personality of a person or to know the individual's mental or behavioral characteristics, you can assess the person with psychological tests. It can either be objective tests or it can be projective tests. Objective tests have been developed to measure all the dimensions of psychological attributes like intelligence, aptitude. If you have gone ahead and answered an aptitude test, that is an objective test. Okay. So, these tests are very widely used for a number of purposes like clinical diagnosis. It can be used for guidance, it can be used for personal selection or placement, or even for training purposes it can be used. And another type of psychological test is the projective test, which is mainly used to assess the personality of the person. Okay, these projective tests, I am not going to go in detail because you will be having it in depth in the further chapters in your syllabus. Moving on to the next, interview. I am sure all of you know what an interview is. It basically involves seeking information from a person on a one-to-one basis. All of you might have seen an interview either on TV or maybe even live. Okay, interviews are taken of very famous personalities, of some political leaders, or sometimes maybe even you have undergone an interview if you had to get an admission somewhere or for job perspective. Yes, so these are the tiny examples of interviews, and we do know how it is very helpful in getting information about an individual because it is done on a one-to-one basis. So, even if anyone is conducting a survey, they go to door to door to conduct surveys and ask them questions. This also can be a kind of an interview and is an important method of assessment as well. The next we have is case study. Case study is an in-depth study of the individual in terms of her or his psychological attributes, psychological history in the context of her or his psychosocial and physical environment. Okay. Now, what does this mean? Case study is a very in detail study of an individual, and mostly it is used by clinical psychologists. So, case analysis is done, it can be either done to see the positive views of a person or maybe even some slight negative views of a person. Like for example, you can do a case study of a person who is highly influential and has become very famous and has mastered some quality or is very good at some particular field. So, you might want to know how that person reached there, what is the hardship the person had to go through. You might want to interact right from childhood up to the current age of the person. So, family background, friends, studies, every inch of the person will be observed or taken in consideration to when you are doing a case study. That can be one thing, or it could be if you know that a child is having some difficulty or suddenly there has been a behavioral change, you would want to know what happened and how you can help. So, in this case also you can use a case study method where right from the beginning till date you will try to find out each and every detail about the child, which will help you to compile together and make a case study of that person. Now, in case studies you will generate data by using different methods, that is you will use interview, you may use observation, you may use questionnaires, give questionnaires to the person, or you may even give psychological tests and many other methods you can use, and compiling all this you will be able to do a case study of an individual. Moving on to the next, that is observation. Observation, it involves employing systematic, organized and objective procedures to record behavioral phenomena occurring naturally in real time. Now, observation is something you all have learned in depth previously. So, in observation what happens is certain phenomena like the mother-child relationship or the mother-child interaction can be easily seen by observing their relation in a natural setting or natural environment. Okay, so, whenever you have to see something in a naturalistic setting or natural environment, it is best to observe it yourself. But there are a few drawbacks to this. One is that in this method the observer may have very little control over the situation, and the reports that are made, it may differ, like it may differ from person to person. Like if I am making a report, I may view it in a different way than you. If you are observing a particular situation, your view might be different from mine. So the interpretation is quite subjective in nature. Yes? So let's move on to the last one, that is self-report. It is a method in which a person provides factual information about herself, himself, and or opinions, beliefs, etc. that he or she holds. Okay, so how will you get to know, how will you use this assessment method, self-report? You can obtain information in different ways. Either you can take an interview where you are asking the person directly questions, so scheduled interview, or you could give a questionnaire where you are again asking the person to answer a questionnaire through which you will come to know about the person. So he or she himself or herself is doing it, or you can always rely on a personal diary. So either tell the person to write a personal diary, or people who already record a personal diary. Through that you will know a lot about the person himself. Okay? So yes, that is the end of that subtopic. Now we come to the next important topic in this chapter, that is intelligence. Okay? Now intelligence, it is a key construct employed to know how individuals differ from one another. Yes, don't you think so? In your class, if you try to see the intelligence level of different people, you will be able to see the differences between people. So it is a key construct in knowing the individual, how the individuals differ from one another. It also provides an understanding of how people adapt their behavior according to the environment they live in. So where you live and how you are adapting to the environment, that also can be understood through intelligence. Now intelligence, if you see the Oxford Dictionary, it says it is the power of perceiving, learning, understanding and knowing. And there are a number of psychologists that have given different definitions about intelligence. It is quite different from the commonsensical notion of intelligence. So we might see it in one perspective, how intelligence is, but if you go in depth about it, different psychologists have given different definitions of psychology. One of them is the first one, that is Alfred Binet. He is one of the first psychologists who actually worked on intelligence, and according to him, it is the ability to judge well, understand well and reason well. Another psychologist whose intelligence tests are most widely used, that is David Wechsler. So according to Wechsler, it is the global and aggregate capacity of an individual to think rationally, act purposefully and deal effectively with the environment, and this is a very well known definition which is defined by David Wechsler. There are other few psychologists as well who have given some definitions, like Gardner and Sternberg, who says that intelligent individuals not only adapts to the environment but also actively modifies or shapes it. Correct, right? The way we are, the way human beings are, we are intelligent and we not only survive in our environment but we continuously modify and shape things that are around us. So we are constantly developing. Now, since we know what is intelligence, we move further to some important theories of intelligence. So the highlights in this is again coming to Alfred Binet. He was the one first to formalize the concept of intelligence in terms of mental operation. Previously also many people had various ideas about intelligence. It was more philosophical in nature, and it was seen in different cultural aspects, in traditional ways. But it was Alfred Binet who was the first to formalize the concept of intelligence in terms of mental operations. And what he saw is, he conceptualized intelligence as consisting of one similar set of abilities which can be used for solving any or every problem. Okay. So, whatever abilities that you have, you can use it to solve any or every problem. He basically differentiated more intelligent from less intelligent individuals, and the model or the factor that he gave was the uni or the one factor theory of intelligence. Okay. So, this theory came to be disputed when psychologists started analyzing data of individuals, which was again collected with using Binet's test. Nevertheless, moving on, Charles Spearman in 1927, he proposed a two-factor theory of intelligence. So, basically in this two-factor theory of intelligence, he used a statistical method which is called as factor analysis. So, he employed this method called as factor analysis, and he said that there are two factors. Intelligence basically consists of two factors, one is the G factor and one is the S factor. G factor is the general factor, which he says is the primary and common to all performances. Okay? The factor that is primary and common to all performances, the mental operations which are there, that is called the G factor. And specific factor, S factor, that is when a person has a specific skill which he or she is very good at. So, general factor is generally when you are having abilities to be having the intelligence to deal with different things, but specific is when you are specifically excelling in a particular domain. Alright. Yes. So, moving on. Another theory is given by J.P. Guilford. It was proposed by J.P. Guilford, and it is called the structure of intellect model. Can you see the image over here? In short, this is how it is explained. So, basically he has classified intellectual traits among 3 dimensions, and the 3 dimensions are operations, contents and products. Okay. Now, each of these 3 dimensions is explained of what it is. Operations are what the respondent does. At the bottom which you see, that is operations, that is what the respondent does. Okay. So, what does that include? It includes cognition, it includes memory recording, memory retention, divergent production, convergent production and evaluation. These are the things that come under operations. Then we come to contents, which you see at the top. Okay. Contents basically refers to the nature of materials or information on which intellectual operations are performed. Right. So, it is the material or information in which the intellectual operations are performed. Like what? What are the things that are included in that? It includes visual, auditory, symbolic. Symbolic means example letters and numbers. Semantic example would be words, and behavioral, that is information about people's behavior, attitudes, needs, etc. And then we come to products, which you see in the middle in the image. Products basically refer to the form in which information is processed by the respondent. Okay? So, how the information is processed by the respondent, that is where products lie. So, what is this products? It is classified into these following things, that is units, classes, relations, systems, transformation and implications. Okay? So, these are the categorization that is done, and basically this classification that is done, it includes the 6 into 5 into 6 categories, which makes it a model which has 180 cells, and each of this cell is expected to have at least one factor or one ability, or some cells may even have more than one factor or one ability, and each of this factor is described in terms of all the 3 dimensions. Yes. So, that is what is the structure of intellect model by J.P. Guilford. And one of the last theories that are there is multiple intelligence by Howard Gardner. You don't have to go in depth in this, you just have to know what it is. It is basically Howard Gardner, he was the one who proposed this theory, which is known as the multiple intelligence theory. So according to him, intelligence is not one single entity. Rather, he says that there are distinct types of intelligence which exists, and each of these intelligence, they are independent of each other. So what he says is, you know, intelligence is not just one single entity. These are the things that he has divided it into. You don't have to go in depth in it. Basically, there are people who might be word smart, who might be linguistically very apt in what they do. Some might be body smart, so they might be very good at dancing or sports. Some might be music smart. So that is what he is trying to tell in this theory of multiple intelligence, that we are having multiple intelligence within us, which does not only exist as a single entity. Yes, so for today's class we wind up, and the important questions that are there, I have just highlighted very few questions because you might see the first point that I have written here: discuss case study and psychological tests as methods used for psychological assessment. I have only written case study and psychological test, but that is just like a kind of question that comes. It could be any other psychological assessment or any other method that could come. Okay, so basically you have to have an idea of each and every point that is covered today. Discuss aptitude and interest as psychological attributes. So basically aptitude and interest means it is coming under the domains of psychological attributes. So don't only focus on aptitude and interest. This is how the question may be framed, or how the question may come from your exam point of view, but it could come of any other point, or maybe you know, it could be about intelligence or values or personality. It could be any of the domains. Then you have to know the theories. So you have to analyze the following, like the Charles Spearman's two-factor theory, or you could be asked J.P. Guilford's structure of intellect model. Okay, so what I always tell my students is your textbook is most important. Don't just rely on notes. You have to read the text to get entire knowledge of what you are studying. So read, try to mark what is important so that you can grasp, because we learn so much, we end up remembering this much, and what comes in the exam is hardly this much. So you have to try to read everything as much as possible so that you understand and you are able to write your answers much better. So yes, that's the end for today. Thank you so much.
Prudent Scholars, powered by Lupin Pharmaceuticals.